No. We are losing our way of life and our culture. There are millions of Mexicans coming. Oh, God. And don't make this a race thing.
Knives Out. The house is America and Ransom is Trump. What do I mean by that? What does this mean for the film? And why might it present a long-term problem for our understanding of this movie? Boy, am I glad you asked. First, the house, the Thrombey house, is America. See, Knives Out is broadly a whodunit. And the heart, the power of the whodunit, is that it's never just a whodunit. Agatha Christie knew that, Rian Johnson knows it too, and you can hear about it in this film's director's commentary. Or rather, you could before they took it down. I found all the relevant excerpts in Cult Popture's video on Knives Out though, so let me play one back for you.
You know, there's something about the whodunit genre that is uniquely good at looking at the class structure of a society in the context of a very entertaining movie. It's kind of built the structure of a whodunit so that it doesn't have to slow down and describe stuff to describe like a power structure within a society to you. It just has that baked into it. It just is kind of really good at talking about, or if not talking about, it kind of displaying and examining class. And it's something that worked over and over in Agatha Christie's books, and it's because the genre is just good at it.
Side note, that's a great video. It's linked below, go check it out. But yeah, the thing about the whodunit is it always happens somewhere. It always binds up all sorts of people, all ranks of people, entrenched in roles and classes, acting out society in miniature. The detective comes in like a scalpel, splitting open this microcosm, peeling back layers one by one, until the whole thing displays itself like a diorama. Despite what certain folks would have you believe, Rian Johnson is familiar with the mystery genre, the way a classic whodunit operates, and while Knives Out hardly plays this format straight, it is built on this same foundation. The diorama we see here, though, isn't the England of 100 years back, as in Christie, it's something a little more familiar. The film doesn't hide this. It whacks you over the head with it a few times. There's that whole bit where the Thrombeys argue over immigration, using Marta as a prop, ignorant to her real story the whole time.
Your family is from Uruguay, but you did it right. I mean, what I'm saying is they did it legally. She did it the right way.
There's the surface-level progressivism of Meg.
The Nazi child masturbating in the bathroom.
The Thrombey house isn't just the Thrombey house, it's also America. The America of the 2010s, a space in crisis, with superficially different factions of rich white wankers vying for control, authority, all of whom take their power here as a given, all of whom will do nasty things to defend it, all of whom implicitly take this space as their birthright, despite it having been built by, well, not them.
Harlan, he bought this place in the 80s from a Pakistani real estate billionaire.
These Thrombeys are the establishment, the rich, the powerful. And while they're not the only ones in the house, we also see in the housekeepers Marta and Fran a glimpse of a marginalized working class, the ones that keep the house running. They are the ones on top. Or at least, they were.
I'm coming in.
The house at 2 Dearborn Drive and all belongings therein I leave to Marta Cabrera.
Oh, you little bitch.
I need to think. Marta, are you listening? I want to talk to you.
That seemed like an interesting thing to me, to kind of have the quote-unquote jerk be kind of the only one that it seems like you could trust. And then to reveal at the end that, no, don't trust the jerk. The idea that he's the asshole that we need, no, never ends up good.
Ransom has this insidious appeal. Despite being a member of this establishment, he pretends to be a threat, pretends to be an outsider determined to wreck the system, to drain the swamp. And this posturing is worryingly successful, even to the very people he's trying to dispossess. He can make you forget about the way he makes the help call him a different name, forget about his suspect activities, forget about the way he claims to be all about entrepreneurship, but is really all about daddy's money.
Small loan of $1 million.
Our protagonist Marta is the marginalized, the poor, the underclass, the minority. The Thrombeys, the establishment, even those professing to be on her side, aren't, not really. They don't know her, not accurately, and they don't care about her. She fetches them sandwiches, and she's a tool they use to win arguments. In the moment, Ransom seems an escape hatch, an answer to this gridlock of malicious, toxic posturing. Soon enough, though, we come to see he's not a solution to this. He's an intensification of it, an extreme version of the others, their worst tendencies materialized. The Thrombeys don't care about the help, Ransom murders and frames the help. The others are nice to Marta when it suits them, Ransom tricks her, uses her as a long-running pawn in his power play. She's the one that'll end up taking the fall. Sometimes it's hard to see when you're being manipulated. When you're desperate, when they're charismatic, it's hard to tell a con from a helping hand. The truth doesn't stay hidden. It can't stay hidden forever. By the end of the film, this front falls away. We see that the would-be savior to the house's crisis isn't a better option. An outsider free from this toxic Thrombey privilege, in fact he's the most devoted of all to these xenophobic, quasi-nationalist myths of worth and genetic birthright.
We welcomed you into our family, and now you think you can steal it from us? Our birthright? Our ancestral family home?
He's better. He was born better. He is owed power and status, and all those lies, all those cons, those gestures of outreach were cold, calculated moves to accrue and safeguard this power. The house is the America of the 2010s, and well, you've all seen the thumbnail, you will remember the intro, Ransom is Trump. I'm not reducing Knives Out to just this. It isn't just a microcosm of Trump-era politics. To take it solely as a story about Ransom is to downplay Marta's role. Knives Out is a minority's story, a woman's story. It's also a brilliantly acted showcase for an all-star ensemble cast, and a really fun new spin on an aging genre. This is just one layer, but this is a layer. And even this layer isn't just this, just allegory. The point here isn't simply Ransom is Trump. The point is Ransom loses. The point is that Ransom loses because of Marta, the marginalized, working-class minority hero so pure-hearted that lying makes her vomit. The point is that Ransom's lies, his schemes, his bullshit, it all reached a critical mass, and it was rejected. When this murderer is defeated, the man who, albeit indirectly, killed Harlan Thrombey, the patriarch, this imagined founding father, the American dream made corporeal, it isn't thanks to those in charge, those with the power, the resources. It's thanks to those without. Justice comes from below. In our world now, post-2020, the world where Trump lost, narrowly, where the decisive blows in that fateful election were struck by women and people of color turning out to the polls in droves, the heft of this ending is clearer than ever. Ransom's done damage, killed people, ruined lives, but it's not too late to stop the damage from spiraling, and in the crucial moment, Marta's nerve holds. Ransom lashes out, one final strike, but it's a dud. And so off he goes, heavy with shame and vomit. The swamp is drained, with Ransom in it. When Knives Out was being put together, when it came out, a sitting president hadn't failed to be re-elected in over 25 years. This was a bold vision, a bold argument for the limits of bullshit, for the limits of Trumpism. Watching it now though, reading this ending in 2023 is cathartic. This vision of a demagogue's defeat is vindicated. The optimism isn't misplaced. It's fitting, it's powerful, it's brave, or at least, that's how it reads now. In ancient Rome, the most successful generals would be given triumphs, essentially big parades where they just flex their achievements in public, on repeat, to crowds of adoring citizens. But it's said that whenever this happened, a key part of the process was the presence of a slave, who'd shadow the general, repeating just 2 words over and over into the hero's ear. Memento mori. Remember you are mortal. Remember this triumph will not last forever. There's an episode of New Girl's 6th season called Hubbity Bubbity, which aired just a week or two before the 2016 US presidential election, and which sees 2 members of the main cast, Jess and Cece, canvassing for Hillary Clinton. Stay with me here. It's rarely in the forefront, but throughout the episode you get a sense there's never really a doubt what the election's outcome will be.
Hi, do you have a minute to talk about Hillary?
I'm voting for her.
Would you like Hillary Clinton?
The main challenge Jess and Cece face in this episode isn't convincing people to vote for Hillary, the obvious, safe, non-explicitly xenophobic misogynist candidate. It's finding people who haven't already decided to do so. She's the obvious pick. It's in the bag. Don't worry about it. And New Girl doesn't worry about it at all. The whole election becomes little more than a privileged game, as the episode ends with Jess's vote going to Winston, her roommate, because she and Cece lost a bet to Schmidt, the show's only remotely right-leaning protagonist, who himself is more bothered about Paul Ryan 2020 than anything else, presuming, as everyone else does, as this world does, that Trump's just a glitch in the system, that business as usual will persist indefinitely.
I'm only focused on one election, the election that matters, Paul Ryan 2020.
Even the Trump supporters we see aren't invested in the Donald's success. Not really. Not even enough to bother voting. Like a lot of episodes from shows which tried to be topical about the 2016 election, this one aged poorly, and it did so very quickly. A matter of days after Hubbity Bubbity aired, Donald Trump won the election, and this episode, like so many others, which calmly laughed off the possibility of a Trump presidency, began to seem like an artifact from a simpler past, a more naive past. Fans of New Girl tend to agree that this one sticks out. They call it depressing to rewatch. It's an episode full of misplaced confidence, but that's not where the rub lies, not exactly. See, New Girl is a liberal-minded feminist show, rarely explicitly, but this really is the guiding ethos here. It's about single life in Obama's America. Life's tricky, and it's a show about people figuring it all out. But it's the people that are the barrier to this, not the all. Jess, Cece, and all their friends live in an okay world. Sometimes life is hard, but success, happiness, love, satisfaction are all within reach, attainable for all so long as dues are paid, so long as personal, professional, emotional growth is pursued. It's the end of history in miniature. The world beyond this little corner of LA is stable. It makes sense. It follows this liberal logic, but that isn't true. And I think the reason Hubbity Bubbity is so depressing to rewatch is that we know, and we can never unknow, that the following days saw reality fall short of this. In retrospect, the episode isn't just wrong, it's cloying. It feels like the product of a misjudged, out-of-touch worldview, one that had been consigned to the history books a few short days after Hubbity Bubbity aired. I don't want to be too harsh on New Girl here. Given the production schedules of shows like this, the episode would have been written way in advance, maybe even at a point when the election's outcome looked like a sure bet. And I'm not trying to say that fiction like this should stay in its lane. This isn't some sermon against stories getting political, of course not. I have a lot of respect for shows and movies which go out of their comfort zone to take swings like this, to gesture toward the non-existence of the divide between ideology and culture, even when those swings miss. It's just a great example of the way this kind of thing can be a double-edged sword. All media reflects the time, the culture, the conditions of its production, of course, but when contemporary affairs or mores are this central to the story being told, this kind of direct, purposeful timeliness can cut both ways. Bringing fiction into direct conversation with contemporary politics means the text is better able to touch the real, to prompt laughter, thought, or even re-evaluation in the viewer, but it also means reality comes to weigh more heavily on the text. It becomes almost impossible to mentally preserve that divide, even if you want to. So an episode of New Girl becomes a black sheep, becomes depressing to rewatch, because you can't rewatch it without seeing, painfully clearly, just how wrong it was, how misplaced the faith in this system was, and how gaudy and presumptuous the episode was, always was. But what does any of this have to do with Knives Out? Well, it's a reminder. Memento mori. At the moment, after 2020, Knives Out stands. Reality hasn't laid bare the flaws in the film's philosophy, not yet at least. So it hasn't aged badly. It isn't depressing to rewatch, and it doesn't seem to be some outdated relic from a more naive time. It seems astute. You can still buy into it wholeheartedly, but thinking about misfires like Hubbity Bubbity is important, because like the slave whispering to the general, it makes us remember that triumph is contingent. The meaning, this meaning, it isn't necessarily fixed or stable. It can change, shatter in an instant. Is Knives Out an incisive, pointed exploration of the limits of Trumpism? The limits of bullshit? The resilience of the marginalized? Or is it a naive liberal fantasy? At the moment, it looks one way. But how will it look in 2024? 2028? We can't say. I can't tell you, not yet. But what I can say is that I don't think we're done with Knives Out. I don't think the way we'll understand this film's resolution has settled yet. Maybe it never will. And I'm sure the minds behind Knives Out would have been aware of this problem of posterity, would have known they were building on shifting sands, asking questions that couldn't be definitively answered, at least not anytime soon. But I think that's fitting. It's a bold move. It's a bold movie. It's taking a brave stance, and that stance is made braver by the ultimate contingency of any future vindicating it. But at least for the moment, this finale looks pretty good. Thanks for watching. This is probably the end of Knives Out Glass Onion season here on the channel, but hey, never say never. There's some really cool stuff in the pipeline, so stay tuned. And I want to say a few quick thank yous. First, to everyone who left supportive comments over the past few days during a testing time. If you know, you know. I'd also like to thank Mechanist Gamma and TSD Talks, who helped me out with some Discord moderation amidst an influx of unseriousness. They're cool guys, and they're both creators themselves, so check them out. And also, thanks to Cult Popture for giving me the go-ahead on reusing those clips. Finally, huge thanks to all my Patreon supporters on screen now, especially Ryan and Merle. I'm really super grateful to all of you. That's it for now. See you soon.